Torchlight have just announced their latest season. If you were worried as a returning player that there was a lot of things this game needed to fix, well, it seems like they addressed literally everything. This was a huge reveal. They went over the new seasonal gameplay, they went over changes to crafting, updates to hero traits, new skills, new Netherrealm changes to make it easier to progress and less unintuitive, and how to get loot. There's also no longer a huge jump between 7 and 8, so they've reduced the difficulty or made it at least a smoother curve. They changed everything. So we're going to highlight some of the cool stuff here, starting off with the seasonal mechanic. It wouldn't be an ARPG, or at least a Torchlight ARPG, if they didn't add some kind of new UI with new things to place. And as you'll see, there is a board. It's like a 3x3 grid with loads of loot tiles placed on it that you want to try and select. The way that you do this is during a map, you're going to encounter a pylon. Complete this pylon and you're going to get a mark of the ruin. So if you see on the right here, there's like a 6-piece square. So this would go here and it would take up those slots. And this is basically a path. So you would take the path through all these inside the city where you're completing the encounters within there to get all of this loot, culminating in a boss fight on the final tile here. Now you have to be careful though, because every single time you add a connection to this board, the boss is going to get more powerful. As you see, every time a reward room is connected, the leader's strength will be +1, and then it scales every interval of 5. The boss gets significantly harder. So you got to be careful with your pathing. Maybe you're going to want to avoid some of these blue nodes and focus more on the purple, the legendary, or the pink nodes to get those better rewards. Who knows? We're going to have much time to practice with this as we go into the season, but it looks really cool. Now, if you thought that this UI was interesting, well, let me introduce you to the new seasonal skill tree. So this is a skill tree that I assume is going to apply when you're inside the city. Here you can see it's like plus 10% additional tiers of Eterna dropped. This is obviously a currency that you can use related to the encounters that you're going to do in the city. Insane skill tree. Now, last time in the cube, we did get a skill tree, but we weren't allowed to finish it all. They immediately addressed this in the reveal where they said you will be able to collect enough of this resource to level up literally everything. You see this guy's got 34,000. And this is only costing 80. So I think we're going to have plenty to upgrade everything. And they said as much. So there's going to be that really end game progression. Now, the reason this is important and you should pay attention to it is as you get those points, the city actually scales indefinitely. You can see the Eterna tier right here. It gets 240 at this point. They just said it goes up and keeps going. So you're going to be able to scale the difficulty into absurd levels. You're going to be able to test your character. You're going to be able to see who can get kind of the highest tier, getting the most rewards. Kind of like a leaderboard system. Getting to that higher Eterna tier will hopefully be really worth doing and worth pushing for. A really cool mechanic. Seems like a pretty deep mechanic with some stuff to figure out, which is always my favorite kind of mechanic. And then after this, we also, it wouldn't be Torchlight again if there wasn't something to increase our power. Here are soul candles. Soul candles are items that you socket onto your skills, and they come with 3 modifiers. As you can see, this one's got cold damage, additional damage taken, and chain skill damage. You can get them, you can socket them onto your skills, and it just adds more modifiers, so you just get more stats. Then, as with every season, we obviously get a new hero. This time we're getting a hero centered around the Spirit Magi. Now you may be thinking they sucked. Well, not anymore. They've actually changed them quite a lot. You're going to be able to bolster them. You're going to be able to get, there's a stat called growth, and you're going to be able to improve them so they do more damage. They have enhanced abilities. You get to play this young lady, which I'm sure some of you will be very excited to do so. And you get to basically just be a new kind of archetype. It's a new archetype within the game. It's not just minions, obviously. It's like more of a Golemmancer, if you're familiar with PoE. So, new hero, new way to play Spirit Magi, very cool. And then one of the most iconic heroes, of course, is Gemma. And Gemma is getting her final hero trait. We've got fire and ice. We've got ice. Now we're getting fire. So, her fire form is the new hero trait. It's quite, you know, deep. There's a lot to this. I'm not even going to pretend to fully understand it yet. This will require me to, you know, get in game, see how it works. But essentially, you're going to brand enemies. You're going to have a zone of purgatory around you that allows you to, like, spread this brand to unbranded enemies, and then you're going to do more damage to those targets. I don't want to pretend to understand how it works exactly just now, but she seems really interesting and could, again, spawn more archetypes. Dot damage and ignites and fire. Normally, they're just fire attack builds, but Ignite, this could open up some room for those other kind of builds. Then we'll move on to the updates to hero traits. Obviously, there are some really underperforming hero traits. If you've seen any of my streams, you'll know these are the 2 heroes I complain about the most. Yoga Space-Time Illusion kind of stunk. He's gained about more than double damage and a way cooler interaction with his space-time illusion. And then Carino just got more multipliers across the board, as this was something he just lacked. If you look at some other heroes, Carino was just miles behind in terms of multipliers. So good to give Carino some love, and then some other heroes got addressed as well. Two other decent hero traits, but ones that definitely need some changes. Lethal Flash was obviously extremely powerful in some cases, but very weak in others. And I think those others were where they intended him to be. So they've adjusted him quite a lot. Then an absolutely huge one, and again, this could take an entire video to explain, but they made massive adjustments to crafting. And if you don't want to watch the whole video, or you just want a soundbite, something to come back to me later and say, haha, Milky, you were wrong. But it looks like they massively fixed crafting. So basically, you can now upgrade modifiers. You have plasticity as you did before, but you can see these arrows on the right. Instead of re-rolling the item to try and get high tiers of a mod, you can simply upgrade it with this button here. You can spend plasticity and currency to take this T4 to a T3, to a T2, to a T1 until you run out of plasticity. But as well as this, you can actually now just add a modifier. It does not matter what it is. You don't have to select from a roll. You just select the mod you want and you add it to the item. Yes, it rolls a random tier, but you can also go back to prototype crafting and then upgrade it the same way you would prior. So crafting got a lot better. Just based on that alone, it looks like crafting is going to be a lot better. You can also get T0 modifiers on items by upgrading them. However, if you upgrade an item to a T0 modifier, it will remove another mod. So be careful doing that. But it will give the opportunity to make some really insane items, and it will make rares more competitive with legendary items, which was a big problem before. But this is the UI. You can see it gets very, very expensive to upgrade items, but that might be counteracted by the fact that they've massively also changed the endgame system. You no longer have a trait deck that gets drawn every round. Instead, you have a deck that applies to all of the stages. So you'll have 10 cards, 10 bonus effects applying to every map you do. You can see one here, drop quantity +6 when the player reaches a new stage of God of War. So these will be applied at all times. So you're going to tailor your deck and you're actually going to get the benefit of the entire deck at all times. I didn't personally hate the trade deck system. I actually really enjoyed it and liked the randomness. But for most players, this is definitely going to be a huge markup in terms of fun and reliability in terms of farming. So people are going to be farming many, many more Flame Elementiums. So don't be too scared of that price of crafting. I think it's going to be absolutely fine. And as a consequence of this, they've actually massively boosted the effects of Chaos cards. So another very nice change. You're going to be way more looking forward to finding those Chaos cards. And it's not going to be more of a, do I do this now, this later? It's just going to be, you see a good Chaos card, you can go and do it. You don't have to worry about, ordering your maps, which is a very nice change. Much easier to understand and play. Next, we'll talk about some more gear related things. So branding is much better now. Basically, if you fail a brand, it will re-roll a modifier. Now, now that might sound bad at first, and I was scared at first, but you can select not to accept that re-roll if you want. So you'll get to see more talents on your brands as opposed to before. So your branding attempts will be more valuable and you'll get more out of them. So much easier to make the good branded slates that you actually want. Finally, we'll talk about kind of the difficulty of the game. The difficulty has been adjusted by basically addressing the defensive systems in the game. They've reduced the reliance on things like auto defense and defensive skills, and instead they've made actual defensive mechanics stronger. So evasion and armor. Armor now mitigates all damage except anything other than fizz. It will be at a reduced rate. I think it's 60%. And evasion, you can now evade skills, again, just at a lower rate. So evasion and armor going to be much more desirable stats now, and you should hopefully be much tankier. You shouldn't be getting one shot all the time. You can be much more defensive. And then to scale out the difficulty curve, one problem that I think we all can say we know about is going from T7 to T8 is a massive jump, and it was largely dictated by like the price of the keys, right, of getting into the maps. Well, now there are intervals between time mark 7 and 8. So at time mark 7, there is the typical time mark 7, then there is 7-1, 7-2, where it scales more progressively, and then when you get into time mark 8, there's 8, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can go up to a much higher difficulty now, but the transition from going from 7 to 8 has been made much more achievable. There's also some more progression to the maps. There's something called deep space. When you're in the Netherrealm, you can apply like a more difficult version. You get more quantity, but you need to use a special kind of beacon. So Who knows, maybe Deep Space is going to be the equivalent of what T8 used to be. You know, everyone wants to be in T8, farming up the juice. But it's going to be easier to do now because they've actually made it so all the compasses can just be bought. You no longer need to go to the auction house to pay extortionate rates for compasses. You can just buy them from the compass shop for FE. These will only ever be a maximum of 3 flame elementium. So you can do these maps and not have to pay 10 flame elementium, and it essentially becomes a gamble as to whether you hit good rewards or not. So very, very, very good changes to the end game, in my opinion. Something that's it's going to make it easier for people to transition from T7 into those higher tiers. Now, I couldn't go into everything in this video, but you know, as the last thing, I'm sure some of you will love this. There's new skins for the heroes. If you're that way inclined, you can go grab yourself a new Erica Bikini skin, or you grab yourself a Commander Moto skin with some tech. Yeah, I'm sure some of you guys absolutely love this. As the season draws near, there'll be more Torchlight content coming, but these were the biggest things that I thought we needed to speak about after that reveal. But I'll be getting ready for the new season. I'll have all the Max Roll guides updated, and if you have any questions, come by stream. We'll be getting ready together. I'll see you soon.